Okay, welcome to topic 13. This is going to be the last topic we're going to cover in our course this summer. All right, and what we're going to talk about here is the future trends in information systems. So there's a couple of things we want to kind of look forward. In technology, you can't always predict the future, 100%, but there's some things that are out there, definitely worth looking at and considering. So, the first thing we've seen, and we talked about this in topic 12, is globalization. So we're not going away. We're not going away from globalization. So we're going to see continuing expansion. We're going to see internet everywhere. It continuing to grow. Still, the we're seeing the internet. The mobile access is definitely social media growth. I mean, the challenge I think with social media has been phenomenal growth. The big issue right now is going to be what to do with that, because it's turning out that a lot of the information that is gathered, by social media companies can be used to kind of influence behavior. All right, so there's a lot of work being done. There's a lot of discussions going on. How do we deal with this from a policy perspective? How do we compensate for this? One of the things that was really interesting was Apple last month when they were talking about I guess their upcoming iOS 13 release. We're talking around a huge emphasis of rethinking their product sets around this idea of privacy and ensuring that information is captured is used correctly, appropriately. So personalized computing experiences, we've seen a lot of this. We've seen a lot of things have been moving around. So personal, modifying user experience to personal preferences. What do people, how do you behave, and how do you adjust it, making things applications smart enough to be able to cope with, personalize what you're doing. Right? So we're seeing, the ongoing growth of mobile is still trending. Right? Wearable. Wearable has been an interesting set of developments. The idea of integrating computing with the human body. So, you know, not a new thing. So obviously, hearing aids and Bluetooth earpieces. We've seen some other ones that are out there. Google Glass was an interesting experiment that Google put out there that was had some interesting. There was some interesting feedback on it. So it did not quite um, take off the way Google expected. They pulled it off the market. They're actually doing some additional work um, around improving. But the idea is that you could it's an augmented reality device. So projects images that only you can see. And providing context and responding on voice commands. Another one that's out there, Up by Jawbone, has a wristband and an app that tracks how you sleep, move, and eat. Things of that nature. Um, Apple is continuing to develop, with their Apple Watch, a whole um, initiative focused on what they call Apple Health. Um, so tracking a lot of this information, tracking a lot of the your health, and be able to offer feedback and do real time monitoring. The challenge with all of this stuff is all of this data that we're capturing, the value of this data, in terms of privacy, in terms of all sorts of implications of this stuff, is very, 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 critical. So, what's happening is as we're doing these personalized computing experiences, the need to ensure the privacy and integrity of that information becomes paramount. So that's one of the things I think, as we're looking at this personalization, that as we what could slow this thing up, possibly something around that. Right? But it won't stop. A couple examples, and we've seen some stuff here. Smart watches and fitness trackers, sports watches, heads mounted display, smart clothing, and jewelry. and then something called implantables. So the idea of it would be something along the lines of a we call it like the Bionic Man or the $5 million man, but something of that ilk, where you could augment or use things to like for example augmented vision or things of that nature, augmented senses, things of that nature. So it seems kind of far out there, but it's clearly could be on a track, where this thing could become a reality at some point. Just some pictures, some pretty pictures of different types of devices. The big issue, it really becomes the form factor and your mode of operation and trying to adapt to how um, you know things move. So it's a whole different. The challenges around this stuff is really different around being able to leverage movement, detect movement, and for example, with an Apple Watch, it stays off until you move your wrist a certain way, which will then activate because you'll be looking at your watch. It'll detect that movement and turn it on. So those are the types of things that get put into that takes into consideration. And this is kind of our visual, um, kind of the next some next generation stuff as we're seeing here. Basically, embedded sensors embedded in clothing, things of that nature. So we're talking about collaborative interactions. You know, the more information you can gather, the more analysis you can do. And the more analysis you can do, the more accurate you can get the results. All right. So the idea of process optimization. So you could gather more and more information to monitor. If you go back and you look at the field of statistics, the reason why statistics was created, the purpose it serves is so you don't have to check everything. You can't check everything. So the idea is you would take samples from a set and then interpolate the characteristics based upon the sample, the results of that sample. Applying the right statistical algorithms to it, you can get a pretty good, usually has been, degrees of reliability, what percentage of reliability. Um, what we're seeing now is it's more data. The more data you can add, the more accurately your analysis can take place. So it's a lot of stuff. And then also this idea of complex, autonomous systems. You say, we talk around like artificial intelligence, AI. Being able to, interpret. So if you think about how we operate, we sense and we respond, sense response, sensing of different conditions, and a response to that. All right, so that's all. That's all. That's these are all things that are all being uh, worked on even as we speak. Um, there's a concept of what we call 3D printing. You may have heard of 3D printing. It's not really printing in the sense of printing, like a piece of paper. It's actually a manufacturing technique where what you can do is um, you can create a physical object, built up using a pattern, using it's all computer driven, to basically build a shape using layer upon layer of I guess of synthetic, like a synthetic uh, technology or plastic to be able to create a 3D object. Right? So they call 3D printing. So the idea would be, to give you an example, um, you go to Amazon, you want to buy a pair of sneakers. All right, you put the order in, and then what Amazon would do is actually send you the instructions to your 3D printer in your house that would then print you a pair of sneakers. Once again, sounds kind of crazy, but they've actually done some interesting stuff that people have. Some samples, some examples, stuff. Some organizations. This is for demonstration purposes, but they built a car using a 3D printer. They built a house using a 3D printer. So it shows some sophistication, some possibilities. We'll see how this works. As usually right now, 3D printing is all in. much more in manufacturing, like within organizations, as opposed to like home use. But that's something that that's something it's something we'll be looking at. People have been talking about this for a while. So print any 3D object based on a computer design model of the object, and you use what they call malleable materials. So it can be glass, metals, wax, plastics, synthetic. So some of the stuff they have is prototyping product designs for feasibility and marketing. It's kind of what's being done right now. Longer term though, as this thing scales up, the ability to actually print real things, is a possibility. So 3D, example of a 3D printing example, a hand, a prosthetic hand, built out of 3D printed components. So it's and this is from a couple years back. So obviously we've seen more and more these pieces have been brought forward, and we're focused on kind of what the next capabilities are and kind of harnessing the capabilities of this stuff. Autonomous devices. This is kind of the area where we talk about artificial intelligence. So we talk about nanobot. Nanobots are a very small robot, at the scale nanometer. It's very 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 small. You can develop swarms of programmable devices. Um, something being worked on. Like so that's one thing. The other thing, which is probably more um, probably better known, is the idea of a driverless car. Combines a lot of different technologies. You think about you driving the car, basically, um, being able to detect and sense objects, being able to make decisions around, understanding location, understanding, a lot of stuff. So that's all part and parcel of a driverless car. So we're seeing that, when it will become, commonplace. Still ways to go, but we're getting there. And then, the idea of an unmanned aerial vehicles. Um, basically drones, automated drones. Basically, we've seen this now. So this is actually has some big, a bunch, and particularly in military environments, the drone has become probably one in the 21st century you know a very significant tool. So we're going to see more of this. Some examples are driverless cars, and that is a quick peek at the future.